and send that out to you. Okay, so welcome. This is our last class for the semester. Probably won't be too long. Let me share my screen. Okay, give me a thumbs up. Thumbs up if you can see the screen, if I've successfully. Okay, wonderful. Great, so let's look at, by now, semester marks have been finalized. I'm guessing you've all qualified for the exam. Well done with that. If you've got a high semester mark, good for you. But please don't let a high semester mark fool you and take a high semester mark as an indication, oh, you don't need to prepare for the exam. Remember, not only must your final mark be 50% and above, you must also get a 40%, achieve a 40% sub-minimum in the written exam paper. So even if you've got a very high semester mark, and your final mark is above 50, if you have not achieved at least 40% in the exam, that will be a fail. So please do take the exam seriously. Okay, so I'm quickly going to give you, just starting off with the layout of the exam. Just going to do this quickly, and then I'll get back to go back to question one and give some discussion. So question one is multiple choice. There I have given you 20 questions. So that is 40 marks in total. Question two. This exam is very much typical to the layout I normally use, also in tests. I have pretty much a standard format that I use for examinations. So question two is short knowledge-based questions. Variety of short questions for a total of 20 marks. Question three is a case study. Two sub-questions, 11 marks and 4 marks, giving us a total of 15. Question 4 is what I refer to as structured application. Five questions, 2 marks each. That gives you 10 marks. Question 5 is a discussion. It's a discussion rather than a case study, but I will get back to discussing this in more detail. Ten marks. And then question 6 is a case study. For 5 marks only. So that gives us 40, 50, 60, 75, 85, 95, 100 marks. That is the layout of your examination. This layout applies only to the first opportunity. Before the second opportunity / supplementary, I will have another preparation session. But of course, we are all trusting that you will not have to write second opportunity. Okay, so let's look at these questions. First of all, multiple choice. I will set up a multiple choice practice quiz for you again on e-learning so that you can practice your multiple choice questions. Multiple choice is 40 marks out of 100, so that's nearly half of the exam. If you do well in your multiple choice, it makes life so much easier. But if you only get 10 out of 40 for multiple choice, you're going to struggle to pass. Take your multiple choice questions very seriously. Take your time. It's a 3-hour exam. It's nearly half. Theoretically, you should spend at least an hour on your multiple choice questions. The questions are long. You've seen my type of multiple choice questions. The questions are long. They are not straightforward. Read the whole question and all the options. Don't read the question and start reading the options and immediately choose the one that you think is correct. Read the question and all the options. Then you read the question again and start going through the options and work by process of elimination. If there's an option that is clearly wrong, there's often an option which is very obviously wrong. Then you cross that one out. Then you read the remaining options again. There's another one that's clearly wrong. You cross that one out. Carry on like that until you only have 2 left. And then read those last 2 options very carefully. Sometimes just one word can make a difference. They might seem at first glance to be identical, but there's like one word difference, which makes the difference between the correct one or not the correct one. So take your time with your multiple choice. Question 2, short knowledge-based questions. Straightforward studying, not application, just theory. What's your mark allocation? If it's a 2-mark question, then you don't need, if it's a 2-mark question and you find yourself reading half a page, writing half a page, I can guarantee to you that your answer is actually incorrect. A rule of thumb. Rule of thumb, 1 mark, 1 line, 2 marks, 2 lines, 3 marks, 3 lines. What's your question words? If I'm asking, is it correct to say blah, 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 blah? I need a yes or a no. If I'm asking you to name something, that's literally all you have to do. You don't have to discuss it, not asking for details. Same with a list. A list also doesn't require details. It's just a list. If I'm asking, what is the most important difference between whatever? I'm looking for one difference. I'm not looking for 6 different differences. What is the most important difference? Most important difference between purchase and sale and lease. Let's see if you can answer this one, by the way. What's the most important difference between purchase and sale and lease? Come, somebody answer me.
Ma'am,
Yes. Yes,
what is the
Benjamin?
question again? What is the question again?
What is the most important difference between purchase and sale and lease? Jane has just given us an answer here in the chat box. Jane,
Okay.
you are correct. You are correct, but you are not complete. Jane has said lease is temporary. I need to put this here in my notes. Jane gave us the answer, lease is temporary. Jane, I'm only going to give you 1 out of 2 for that question, for that answer. It's not wrong, but it's incomplete. Jane, how would you or anybody else elaborate on that question? Ms. Kasutu, Ms. Kasutu's given us an answer here. Buying an item gives you ownership, but leasing an item offers more flexibility in terms of payment and maintenance. Those aren't actually opposites. That's also a 1 mark answer. Ownership and then more flexibility. Those are 2 different things. They don't relate to each other. Buying an item gives you ownership. Leasing does what? Because in fact, buying something can also be flexible with regard to payments. You could pay it off, etc., etc., etc. So you're confusing things here. Lease is temporary. Purchase and sale contract with an intention to own it. Okay, Jane has now given us 2 answers here. So we can combine these 2. Lease is temporary. But purchase and sale is permanent. You have the intention to own it. Do you see what I mean here? That the one is, if I'm asking for the most important difference, what I'm looking for is two opposites, not two different concepts, but temporary, permanent. Purchase and sale, you become the owner. Lease, you don't become the owner. Are you with me? Thumbs up if you're with me. Okay, thank you, Ms. Kasutu. Okay, so these are the type of questions that you can expect in question 2. Straightforward knowledge items. Some are easier, some are literally just theory that you've studied. Others are a little bit more complex, like this one. Yes. So then question 3 is a case study. One case study, one sob story with 2 separate questions relating to the facts in the question. When you do a case study that consists of sub-questions, read all the sub-questions before you start answering. Make sure that for each sub-question, you answer only what I have asked. Sometimes it happens that, say, question 3.2 might actually give you a bit of a clue as to what question 3.1 is about if you aren't sure. That's why it's always important to read all your sub-questions before you start answering. Once again, what's your mark allocation? For 11 marks, if you only write three lines for a question that counts 11 marks, you aren't going to get 11 out of 11. 11 marks, I'm looking for at least 5, 6, 7 lines, a little bit more detail. What's your mark allocation? If it's just 4 marks, then obviously your answer is going to be shorter. I'm going to get back to the case study in a while. Structured application, we've had structured application before. It's this type of question where I give you 5 sub-questions. Something in the line of each of the following instances indicate whether the contract is valid. This is just an example. This isn't the actual question. Motivate your answer. So there's 1 mark for whether it's valid, void, or voidable, and then 1 mark for the motivation. The motivation, remember, a motivation refers to the legal concept. Do not just copy the facts. If you just copy the facts, chances are that you will lose marks. So the example here, I've referred to whether the contract is valid. There's a lot of options there. I can ask you whether there's a lease agreement, whether there's valid purchase and whether there's a valid partnership, whatever. So you need to know your requirements. If I've asked you whether the contract is valid, of 5 requirements for a valid contract. So you read your scenario, it's normally just 2 or 3 lines long, and check whether all these requirements have been met. Questions about that? Everybody okay with that? Question 5 is a discussion question. It starts off with a case study, a little scenario, a little story that I've written. But what I'm asking you is actually theory. Not application. So this is actually literally studying. This particular question, it's for 10 marks. There's no actual model answer. In my marking scheme, I don't have a list of 10 bullet points that you have to get 10 out of 10. There's actually a lot more information, more than 10 marks worth of information that you can include. So let's give you an example here. So I just want to get to that part in the notes. Let's say, for example, I'm saying the question is something in the line of, let's just use A, B, and C. Want to start a partnership. Explain the requirements to them. So this is not an application question. I'm not asking you, does a partnership exist? That would be another potential question where I give you certain facts and you must decide based on the facts whether there is a partnership or not. If I'm just asking you to explain the requirements, this is essentially what I'm looking for. There are 3 main requirements for a partnership, which we looked at when we started partnerships. So you've got those 3 requirements. Each partner must contribute, business must be for the joint benefit, and the object must be to make and share a profit. Obviously, that is not enough for 10 marks. So you need to elaborate. Each of these requirements have got sub-requirements, which I have discussed there for you. So that would be what I'm looking for if I'm asking you whether, now where is my question? I've lost my question. If that's what I'm asking you, explain the requirements, then that is what I'm looking for. You've got the requirement, but you need to discuss this requirement. So there's a lot of information there, a lot more than just 10 marks. And then our last question, question 6. I told you you're going to get this. You have been warned. Contractual liability of a partnership. I told you when we did that part of the work that this will definitely be in the exam, and I did not lie to you. It's very short and sweet. Is the partnership bound to the contract? Let's go up to where we did that. Contractual liability of a partnership, there it is. Is the partnership bound to a contract entered into by one of the partners? How do we answer this? Remember, I'm literally giving you the answer here, so I hope you're listening to me. You need to check, is this contract that they entered into, the individual partner entered into, is it valid or not? Measure it against the 5 requirements for a valid contract, but you don't need to discuss those requirements in detail. Sufficient to tell me that the contract is valid, but you get marks for stating that. That requirement, whether it's entered into on behalf of the partnership or in the name of the partnership, you'll find that in the facts. I will give you that information. Don't just list. Do not just list the requirements. That is not enough. So if you're telling me the contract must be valid and it must be entered into in the name of the partnership, I'm not going to be giving you any marks for that. Because I want to know, is the contract valid? Is it entered into on behalf of the partnership? So apply to the facts and give me the answers. And then you start at the top looking at authority. Is there express authority? Yes or no? If there's express authority, the partnership will be bound. If there's no express authority, you go to the furthest step. Is there implied authority? Now remember, and I still, after teaching the subject for, 23 years, 22 years, I still don't understand why students don't understand this. All partners, this is a natural legal consequence, all partners they start off that all partners have implied authority. But this is a natural legal consequence which can be changed. And if there's no implied authority, if it has been changed, and this contracting partner acts contrary against the provisions of the partnership agreement, then there is no implied authority. If something has been taken away from you, you don't have it anymore. Let's say Jane, Benjamin, and Hilma are the partners in the partnership. But in their agreement, they have agreed that only Jane may represent the partnership. Hilma then enters into a contract. Did Hilma have implied authority? Come answer me. Thank you, Evelina. No, she did not. So the moment you say she had implied authority, that's wrong. Because of the provisions of the partnership agreement for this particular contract, she did not have implied authority. In other words, the contract is unauthorized. It remains unauthorized. But because this is a partnership and there are specific rules, common law rules that apply to partnerships that are slightly different to the common law rules of agency that apply to individuals. In a partnership, the mutual mandate means that in the scope of the business, will be bound. Remember, for you to get maximum marks, if you just write in your answer, if it is in the scope of the business, the partnership will be bound. I'm not going to be giving you any marks. You must apply to the facts. Tell me, is it in the scope of the partnership? Or is it in the scope of the business? If it is, your answer is yes. The partnership will be bound. Is everybody with me here? Are you following? But now, thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Ms. Kasutu. Now you must be careful, because although this is all, in fact, relatively, incredibly easy, it is so straightforward. Now you start writing nonsense, which means you end up losing marks. Jane has implied authority. It is the scope of the business. This is nonsense. She doesn't have implied authority because there was a partnership agreement which changed the rules of authority in the partnership. If she acted contrary to that, we've just learned, we've just agreed, she does not have implied authority. The fact that it's in the scope of the business doesn't suddenly give her authority. It remains unauthorized. Better answer here would be Jane does not have implied authority, but, or however, but because it is in the scope of the business, partnership is bound. Do you understand the difference? Do you understand why the one is nonsense and the other one gives you full marks? I've got silence. Are you following? Let's give you this one. I need an answer to this. We started off here. Okay, this is actually different. Let's just put a heading in here for us. Contractual liability of a partnership. So that when I send you the notes, you realize I've moved on to a different topic here. So we've got our requirements, namely it must be valid, entered into on behalf of the partnership. Let's make this complete and give you a copy and paste. So those are requirements. Then I get sentences like this. Contract is valid because it's in the scope of the business. Explain to me why will I give you 0 marks for a sentence like that? Come, somebody, why is that a nonsense sentence? Silence. Let's break it up. Contract is valid. So said you don't have to discuss this in detail, but why is this doing this now? Don't know why it's not showing my numbering. Never mind. I've got my sequence. It should actually go there. I pasted it in the wrong place. Let's look at this. Let's go back to where you started in the beginning of the semester. What are the 5 requirements for a valid contract? Benjamin?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
What are the 5 requirements for a valid contract?
The first one is consensus.
Consensus?
Yes. The second
Carry
one
on.
is contractual capacity.
Contractual capacity.
Third one, performance must be possible. The fourth
Performance must be
one,
possible.
yes, performance must be legal.
And
then formality if it is there, if it's being agreed between partners or parties.
absolutely. You are 100% correct here. These are the requirements for a contract to be valid. Now tell me, if you go back to my example, my nonsense example. The contract is valid because it is in the scope of the business. Is amongst those 5 requirements for a valid contract, is in the scope of the business one of them? Benjamin has just quite correctly listed the 5 requirements for a valid contract. Is it must be in the scope of the business one of those requirements for a valid contract? No, it's not. A contract can be perfectly valid even if it's not in the scope of the business. What I'm going on about is the use of the word because. It is not valid because it is in the scope of the business. It is valid because it meets the 5 requirements for a valid contract. Contract is binding because it is in the scope of the business. Do you see the difference? Contract is valid, contract is binding. Those 2 concepts do not mean the same. Am I just making a lot of noise, saying a lot of words? Have I now completely confused you? Or do you understand what I mean? This is going to make the difference between passing and failing. I'm very concerned about the fact that everybody has gone completely silent. Have I completely lost you? Please explain to me what you don't understand. Okay, I give up. I'm going to move on. Very worried about the fact that I just seem to have completely lost you, that you don't understand the difference between saying the contract is valid and saying the contract is binding. A contract can be valid without the partnership having to pay because it's not binding. Then somebody else has to pay. Jane, Benjamin, and Hilma are our partners. Partnerships that sells shoes. Jane buys a racehorse. Jane buying a racehorse, is that a valid contract? Somebody? Jane has agreed to buy a racehorse for $500,000. She's got contract, so there's consensus. She's got contractual capacity. It's possible to buy a racehorse. It's perfectly legal to buy a racehorse. And it doesn't have to be in writing. Is Jane buying a racehorse a valid contract? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, it's a valid contract. It's a partnership that sells shoes. Does Benjamin have to pay for that racehorse?
No, not binding.
No, ma'am.
Exactly. Thank you, Evelina. Thank you, Benjamin. The contract is valid, but it's not binding. There's a difference between saying the contract is valid and saying the contract is binding. Binding means the individual partners can be held liable. That will depend on whether there was authority or whether it was in the scope of the business. But authority and scope of the business have got nothing to do with valid or not valid. Okay, let's move on. So that is question 6. With regard to question 3, I can't say too much without actually giving you the question, which I don't want to do. Let's go back to purchase and sale. What is important that you and understand from the contract of purchase and sale is that the seller has various duties. And what I'm saying here now is because these are common errors that I pick up, have picked up in the past in law exams based on purchase and sale. What are the seller's duties? The seller must deliver the thing. Seller must keep the thing in safe custody before delivery. And together with the fact that it must be kept in safe custody before delivery, we have the passing of the risk rule. When will the risk pass? If the contract is perfecta. When is the contract perfecta? When the thing has been agreed upon, and not just agreed upon, ascertained. Price has been fixed. And there are no suspensive conditions. And I trust you know what a suspensive condition is. Not going to explain that to you now. Then there's another duty of the seller, namely to guarantee against latent defects. This is not the sequence that I'm in the study guide. I'm changing the sequence here for a specific reason. I'll explain now. And then eviction. Those are the four main duties of a seller in a contract of purchase and sale. Do not mix them up. Do not scramble them together. They are separate duties. Most commonly, the two duties that are often mixed up is the duty to keep the thing in safe custody and the duty to guarantee against latent defects. Guarantee against eviction, you don't normally confuse with these because it's totally different. That's when the seller was not real. Seller was not the real true owner, and the true owner came to claim the thing back, so that's a separate one. But these two duties, you tend to mix up. The seller must keep the thing in safe custody before delivery. So that is, if damage, it refers to damage that occurred after contracting, but before delivery. The guarantee against latent defects, on the other hand, refers to a defect, a latent defect existed before contracting, before the contract was entered into. Do you see the difference here? Do you understand the difference? Benjamin thank you, Benjamin. Benjamin buys something which is in a perfectly good condition. But before he can take delivery, while it is still in Ms. Kasutu's possession, so they've entered there's a contract of purchase and sale. It was in a perfect condition when he bought it. Before he buys it, before he takes delivery, it gets damaged. And then the question is, who is liable for this damage? Benjamin as the purchaser or Ms. Kasutu as the seller? Issues that will be at stake here is, did Ms. Kasutu keep it in safe custody or not? And did the risk pass to Benjamin? When will the risk pass? If the contract was perfecta. That's the one possible issue. A totally different issue, and these two have got nothing to do with each other, is Benjamin buys something from Ms. Kasutu, and after he has taken delivery, he realizes that when he bought it, it was already defective. So it didn't get damaged afterwards. There was already a latent defect. Keep these two separate. I will never muddle them up in one question. Every question will deal with one of these duties. I will not combine more than one duty in a single question. I promise you. How do you answer? First, figure out yourself, what is this question actually about? Is it about latent defects? Is it about safe custody and the passing of the risk rule? Is it about eviction? Then you give me the theory. What are the requirements? So what are the requirements for the passing of the risk rule? There they are. Just type them out there. Or alternatively, I'm not going to type them out now. What are the requirements for a latent defect? They are in the study guide. You get marks for listing the requirements. And then you apply. Then you start applying. You apply the requirements to the facts. Have the requirements been met? Which will then give you a conclusion. If the requirements have not been met, then the duty does not apply, or the risk does not pass, or whatever the question was. If the requirements have been met, then your conclusion will say, yes, whatever, there was a latent defect, etc., etc., etc. With me? Okay, that's all I wanted to share with you tonight. If I have to carry on much longer, I'm going to start actually giving you the exam paper, which is not a good idea. Yes, Benjamin.
Yes, ma'am. It's about this question bank upload so that we don't have access to.
What don't you have access to?
The question bank on e-learning. We can't view
Yes.
like.
Yes, of course you can't view my question bank. Students don't have access to my question bank. In order to have access to the question bank, you need to be a lecturer, which you might be one day, but you aren't yet. What I will do for you, Benjamin, is I will set up a multiple choice practice quiz, which will be using questions of the question bank. But I will set it so that you have unlimited opportunities. So if you want to do it 20 times, then you're welcome to do it 20 times. And for each of those 20 times, You might get some duplications, repetition of questions, but you will also get different questions.
Oh, okay, ma'am.
But unfortunately, I cannot download my entire question bank and say, there it is, memorize the answers.
Oh,
you have to
okay.
actually, but I will, for the practice quiz, I will make the settings so that once you've completed the quiz, that the correct answer is also available to you.
Oh,
So
okay,
just
ma'am.
instead of just Moodle just telling you your answer is incorrect, it will give you the correct answer. And then
Oh.
if Benjamin, please, if you don't understand why the question, why it's that answer, please on the group ask me.
Okay,
Copy
ma'am.
and paste the question and say, Miss, I don't understand why this is the right answer, so that I can explain it for you.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Jonas, was the ear up? Your hand was up as well?
Yes, good evening, ma'am.
Okay.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. Irap.
Yes, I just wanted to remind me to please share the class notes.
Jonas, if you ask me very, very nicely and you tell me what a wonderful lecturer I am and how I am absolutely just the best lecturer you have ever had, and no one will ever be better than I am, I will share the class notes tonight.
Yes, ma'am, you are most definitely the wonderful lecturer. Because you are the best in all the lecturers at NAS.
Yes, flattery is going to get you nowhere at all. I will share these notes tonight, I promise.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
And if I haven't shared them by tonight, please send me a very nasty WhatsApp tomorrow and tell me that I'm no longer wonderful.
Okay, we'll do so.
Okay. Any further questions? No further questions. Okay, then I'm going to say goodbye to you. Good luck with your preparation. Please, I am on the WhatsApp group. Ask me whatever you don't understand, anything you have concerns about, ask on the group, and I will continue to be available to you until right before the exam. Otherwise, I will see you in the exam venue, and then I will see you next semester in company law when I teach you company law, because I'm convinced you will all pass. Okay.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Lord.
Bye.
Hi, Miss.